A lot of animals, by the time we capture them, they're like, okay, biting doesn't work. I'm just going to sit here and just try to be not noticed or try to get away. Every animal has multiple ways of defending itself, and biting is probably pretty dangerous for them, or stinging, because they're maybe using venom. Mm-hmm. They're also locked in. You know, if you're in a fist fight and you go up and try to bite someone, you're real close to them. You know, a lot of animals prefer to do something that's a little longer distance, like tail whip or something like that.
This is the Tom Rowland Podcast. Fascinating stories to amaze, encourage, and inspire you in fishing, fitness, and the outdoors. And we're brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I started this podcast as a way to connect with my friends, people that I admire and respect, and you. It has been a learning journey that's made me a better person, a better fisherman, a better father, and a better athlete. I'm so happy that you're on this journey with me, and I'd love to hear from you with show suggestions, guest suggestions, or questions. The best way to get a hold of me is through text. You can text 305-930-7346 for the fastest response, but if you prefer to email, you can send that to podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. That's a dedicated email address just for the show. If you like this show, you can show your support by posting about it on social media and tagging me. Text the link to a couple of friends that may also enjoy it, and subscribe and leave a 5-star review if you feel like I've earned it. The website is tomrowlandpodcast.com, and that is where everything lives. All past shows, you can go and listen to any show. You can look up all the different shows that we've done, both the How To Tuesdays, the full links, and the physical Fridays. They all live on tomrowlandpodcast.com. And the social media is Tom_Rowland, ROWLAND, on Instagram, or you can go to our big account, Saltwater_Experience. I hope to hear from you soon. So now let's get on to today's show.
I'm Caveman Rob Alleva from the show Kings of Pain on History, and you're listening to the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Okay, we got a lot of things to talk about. Rob, man.
Yeah, I'm so...
I tell you what.
Sorry, Adam.
I have been watching your show. It's incredible. I love the History Channel shows. One Alone is one of my favorite shows, and this one is right up there with the quality and the way that it's shot and everything. That channel just has really nice stuff. Your show, Kings of Pain, is really interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is a fishing and outdoor podcast, so most of the people listening to this have a pretty good chance of encountering a lot of the things that you guys are going out and looking for. But just so that I'm 100% clear on this, there was some work done by Justin Schmidt, and I see his book behind you, The Sting of the Wild, right? And he was trying to come up with an index of pain, and he did it from 1 to 4. And you guys are trying to expand on that and take it to 30 with some other categories. Is that right?
That is right. Justin Schmidt was a big character, entomologist, bug guy, and big misconception about him. He wasn't going around getting bitten and stung on purpose. He was doing some really cool research, digging up harvester ant mounds that could be 10 foot deep and things like that. But I think he got stung by around 78 species of insects that he rated, because he's like, I'm getting stung all the time. We should like put them in different categories. And so he did 1 to 4 and how much it hurt, with a honeybee being a 2. So kind of middle of the road sting.
Okay.
You've probably been stung by a sweat bee or something. That's around the half or 1 point. And then he only had 3 insects out of all of them that rated a 4.
Okay.
But I think history was like, okay, like we can do more than insects. Like, how far can we take this?
Okay. So, I mean, it makes for a great show. There's no question about it that it makes for a great show. But is there, I mean, they kind of play it off like there's some scientific benefit for creating this scale. And in your opinion, what would the benefit be of creating a scale 1 to 30, just so people kind of know what to expect? Like, whoa, that's a 30 right there. Don't mess with that thing. It's bad news. Or is there something more to this?
Definitely what we thought was going to be the most important stuff turned out not to be, and other things are. So we wanted to do a 30-point scale, 10 points in each of 3 categories. So intensity, duration, and damage. And so a 30 points would be the total that any animal could get. We haven't hit 30 yet, but we got a lot closer this season.
You look like you're pretty close.
Yeah, we're up there over 25, I think. And we thought that if someone had something they could look at, this animal bit the guys on Kings of Pain, it rated a 20, and this thing just stung or bit me. Look, I'm not going to die, but here's probably what's going to happen to me. Just give them some idea of what might happen to them. So we thought the pain index itself would be the most useful thing. As it turns out, there's a lot that goes in the pain index. And if you're looking at that whole number instead of each category, you might have some misconceptions, because something could be only a 12 and you're like, oh, that's nothing. But maybe it's a 10 in intensity, just the worst pain you've ever felt in your life, but didn't last longer, didn't cause a lot of damage. So you might not be prepared if you're like, oh, it's only a 12. But turns out the real value, I think, for the show is not so much the index itself. Making the index is important. Mm-hmm. How we get there and seeing why these things score what they do or what they don't score. And we've got message after message from people saying, oh, my kid is way interested in animals now. I started a biology program because I started watching your show. I used to kill snakes in my backyard. Now I just move them off their property. We've had countless messages like that. And that's good, because we were scared in the beginning. Are we just going to scare people away from animals?
Right. Well, I mean, you probably are doing that as well as motivating people to learn more about them and maybe coexist with them. But I'm sure that there's a bunch of people that decide that that ant looks a lot like the one I saw on TV. So we're killing the whole mound, in the backyard. Yeah, leave them alone. That is probably the best idea. One of the things that's been the most interesting about watching your show are the marine stings that you've done, because you're going all over the world. And in season 1, you went to Bali. Where all did you go in season 1?
We went to South Africa, Bali, Baja, California, and Mexico, and we went to the Amazon in Bolivia.
Yeah, you could probably find a lot of things that could hurt you there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then on season
stingrays. I know you're a fish guy. We saw freshwater stingrays in the Amazon. We didn't get stung by them, but that was just something you don't think about when you're wading in a river. Oh, there's a stingray.
Right. And that thing that could get you. So I want to get to how you decide what you're going to get stung by, but it looks like I'm looking at this graphic right now that was sent to me, the King of Pain's pain index, and there's yellow ones. I wonder if I could even share it right here. Let me see if I could put it right up here. Yellow is what you did in season 2, and the white is what you did in season 1. And it looks like you guys were really busy in season 2. There's a lot of yellow on this. So did you get bit by more things in season 2?
I think a little bit more. And then for us, the time schedule was really, really tight. So there were times we were still in pain. We barely recover. And then we go on to the next animal. It was brutal.
Wow. All right. So there's a lot of things on here that we're familiar with on this show. One that everyone is very familiar with here is a lionfish. Let's talk about that one first. The lionfish is an invasive species. It's all over Florida. People encounter it when they're snorkeling, when they're diving. There are lionfish tournaments trying to get rid of them. There are a lot of people encountering these fish in the Florida Keys and the Bahamas and all over the place. So tell me about the lionfish and what that was like.
Yeah, that was one we just had to do. Not only was it famous in its native range, but you're in Florida, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So where you're at, like it's a huge deal. A lot of what we did, especially in season 1, was bringing awareness to invasive species and things like that. Mm-hmm. So we had to do the lionfish. The thing that really stood out for me was it's hard to get stung by it. Which sounds weird, right?
Yeah.
But it has really long spines. And I don't know if it made the episode. There's things that happen in any TV show. They're so difficult to make.
Right.
And we went through a couple different lionfish, and we found the smaller one was actually a lot easier to get stung by because it had shorter spines.
Mm-hmm.
And the long spines on the really big lionfish that we had just bit. And so they just kept bending and it wouldn't even penetrate our flesh. But then we got the smaller one and it went right in. You see a spine going to Adam and there's just blood everywhere. Like, oh, is the fish okay? And Adam's like, no, that's my blood.
Wow.
Yeah. For me, it was extremely painful and it lasted a long time. But Adam's hand swelled up really bad for hours and he was in a lot of pain. And we kind of noticed that we don't always have the same reactions. And so that's another thing about the pain index. We both get bit and stung every time. And that we have a little bit of more data to go off of.
Right.
Average the two. Gives you a little bit better idea than if it's just one guy getting bitten and stung.
Right. And then you have you have your own personal kind of reaction to the thing where even on the ones that I've watched, you and Adam have a different opinion of it. Maybe, but you do agree on some things like the duration, like, boy, that was a hot searing pain. And then it drops off immediately, where other things, you have other things where you get stung and it doesn't even seem like it hurts that bad. And then a couple days later, it's really bad. Which in your opinion, which is worse?
I'd rather get it over with. I don't want to sit around waiting for it, man. And we almost made a huge mistake in season 2. So we did a beaded lizard, which is related, to the Gila monster.
Yeah.
You'll see it. It's at the top of the list.
It's at the top of the list. That's the number one. That's a 26.5.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. It earned it. It earned it in a major way. We got just a baby, Rio Fuerte beaded lizard from native to Mexico. And the reason we did that is because the Gila monsters are protected, difficult to get legally. Adam went first, and this thing lashed on him for about 6 seconds. And then we would use with a lot of animals, especially reptiles, their teeth are a little backwards sometimes, and so it's hard to pull them off. So if you use something like a credit card, or we had a more flexible piece of plastic, we just shimmed it off. So we just got that plastic between the jaw and the hand. Doesn't hurt the lizard, doesn't hurt you. Works really well. So if anyone's listening, I don't know if you have if you're bitten by something that's lashed on, even just like maybe a soda can or something, you can slide into there, but you got to be careful. That's a lot sharper. And then Adam was wrecked. I'm talking, on the floor, just felt sick. They're putting an IV in him. He's telling me, don't do it. It's not worth it. He's not just saying this for TV. Like, I know the guy, he was legit worried about me. He's like, don't do it, And finally, we probably should have waited to take care of Adam, but the sun's going down. We're doing a TV show, and this is the only time ever that Adam hasn't been the one to deliver a sting to me. We had to get the animal handler for the lizards that we had brought in, and he did the bite on my arm. And I only had it for I think about half that time, 3 seconds. It hurt like hell at first, like a massive wasp sting. I'm yelling, screaming. I get a little dramatic sometimes. But then the pain went away. And Adam's over here sick and in the worst pain I've ever seen him in. Just doesn't look good. And I'm basically fine.
Did you get bit by the same lizard, or were two different lizards?
Same lizard, but way we did this, we used the right side of the jaw for one person and then the left side of the jaw for the other person. So that kind of, kept you from maybe getting all the venom in one person. And it's not like a rattlesnake where you have a high pressure delivery system where it could inject a huge amount of venom at once. It's slower. It comes from the bottom jaw through capillary action. So it's not like Adam would have had all the venom anyway. But we're thinking maybe something like that did occur. And I'm like, I'm going to go again. It's been 30 minutes. It's been almost an hour. At one point, I'm like, I'm going to get, the doctor's like, no. And the 20-year-old in me was like, man, the doctor can't tell me what to do. He's not my boss. I'm going to go again. I'm going in for a second. I felt guilty. Adam was in the worst pain of his life, and I'm completely fine. And I felt really guilty. But then, I think my 40-year-old brain kicked back in. I was like, well, what's insurance going to say if I went against doctor's orders and then I went in the hospital? I might be paying for this out of pocket. So we started to leave, and I was a bit disappointed and feeling guilty. And then about 1 hour in, the pain started kicking in really bad.
Whoa.
And it got worse and worse. And I'm throwing up. Adam's throwing up. We had a van that would drive us home because we weren't allowed to drive home after bites and stings. And I'm throwing up in the van, trying to get out and puke outside of it. It was bad. And it turned out to be, I don't remember how many hours of pain, but my wife wasn't home when I got home. And normally I don't want her home. I want to suffer alone, just leave me alone. And I think that's the only time I was ever disappointed. I was like, she's not here. I actually want someone to take care of me.
Wow.
It basically reduced me to like a baby.
So what does your wife think about this this is season 2, and
right.
Like, are there going to be, do you envision season 7? If it was, I know how TV works. Sometimes the ratings go down and it doesn't last that long, but a lot of times it's because of the talent. Like, would you continue to do this? Are you having fun with it? Like, this sounds pretty rough.
Oh man. Well, as far as my wife is concerned, she's happy I'm not doing anything stupider. So she can do this. Yeah.
That sounds like you might have a history of that.
Maybe. Season 1 was probably the most fun thing I've ever done in my life. We are traveling. We're going to exotic locations. We're catching these animals. We had hippos attack us. And that was fun afterwards,
Yeah.
We had just a real adventure with it. Season 2 did feel like work. We were in the same location. We had a tighter schedule. So they were more like, hey, I know you're still kind of messed up from that bite yesterday, but you want to go ahead and do another one? This one's more deadly. And so it felt like work. I don't see a season 7 in it for us, but I would love, and Adam would love as well, to do a season 3 at least.
Yeah.
There's murder hornets out there. There's these other animals we just got to do. To quit now would feel so incomplete because we want to look at this pain index and feel like we didn't leave anything out that someone really would have liked to have seen.
Now, did you? I didn't see anything on here with any sort of jellyfish or man of war or anything like that. Is that purposefully left out, or did you do that?
No, that is big bucket list for both Adam and I.
Okay.
There's a lot of animals that we've been accidentally stung by in our lives, but jellyfish and man of war, we've had some minor stings, but we haven't had a really bad sting. We really want to see what that's like. It's just the logistics, like winds and tides, and being in the right location for a man of war, especially if you have 10 days in this place, and if you don't time everything perfectly, you're not going to get one. So logistically, it's been tough. We're still working on that. If there's a season 3, we've got to get at least a jellyfish or a man of war.
Well, there's plenty of them in the Florida Keys.
There are. And the man of war out there, the Atlantic ones are supposedly way worse than ones in Pacific.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think it would be pretty easy to get bit, but I think you might be disappointed. I've never been stung by one. Sometimes the tentacles will, the fishing line will come across them and you'll start noticing something on your hands. It's kind of burning and stuff. And there's just like little pieces of it on the fishing line. And that's what it would feel like times 1,000,000, I guess. But I've never really gotten hit by one, but the little tentacles coming off of those things are really long, like 10, 12, 15 feet long. And they go probably to, they're black in the beginning. And as long as a fishing rod, as long as a fly rod, like 9, 10 feet long. And then I'm sure that they probably go translucent or transparent to where you're not seeing them and get very hair-like fine. And then you get wrapped up in them, I guess. But I don't know if I don't think they would be a 25 or 26. I know people that have been hit by them. But then there are plenty of other jellyfish out there that could be horrendous, I would think.
we may be willing to do something like an irukandji or some other box jellyfish. You're talking potentially the most venomous creature on the planet.
Right.
It would have to be a controlled amount. We probably need to talk to someone like, I don't know, like Jamie Seymour in Australia, who's a box jelly expert. Even with Dr. Ben Abo, who is our medic, who is phenomenal in the world of venom, I would still also want to talk to someone who is an expert in that species specifically.
Yeah.
Especially, Dr. Ben, he's dealt with stuff all over the world, but I doubt he's dealt with the box jelly sting. But those two guys could get together and talk. We could figure out if it is feasible.
Wow. So a couple of the other things that you've been stung by, a lot of people know the lionfish and the scorpion fish. What was that one like? Because that is something that could be encountered by this audience.
Oh, the scorpion fish?
Yeah.
The intimidation factor was huge. I think that's the most scared I've ever been. Because you know how they have those fat, thick spines.
Yeah.
They can erect them really well. It's just an intimidating, not a very pretty animal like the lionfish. And we were like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do the stone scorpion fish in Mexico. Fishermen get stung by it all the time. It's supposed to be extremely painful. And I'm picturing this thing's going to sting us in the arms because we try to do everything in the arm. A lot has to.
I was going to ask why that is. Why do you choose the arm every time?
We're trying to give them a level playing field, a safer area on the body. Hopefully, like the forearms will protect us, a little bit of muscle. The basic thing is we want to give them a level playing field.
So was that a doctor's advice, or did you guys think, I think I'd rather get it in the arm?
There was a guy who did honeybee stings like every day, like 5 a day for months or a year. That was like his doctoral thesis.
There's a lot of people that do that, like for therapy.
For therapy,
they actually like it. They get stung on purpose and they like it.
Yeah, even I wouldn't want to do that.
And that's only a 3.
Yeah. But this guy would do it like on his lip and like on the shaft of his manhood.
Oh,
on his
nice.
arm. He was pretty crazy. But the arm was a 5. So it's middle of the road kind of area. It's also very convenient for Adam and I. And we can't do it on the face. We're on TV. Mm-hmm. It's the moneymaker. Yeah. But sometimes it's not just logistically possible. We have to do it on the hand or something else.
Gotcha. So the scorpion fish. Tell me about the scorpion fish.
The scorpion fish, we were like, we're going to do it on the arm. And then we get there and there's a giant aquarium that they built. And inside this aquarium, there's a small box. And the reason for the small box is see-through. It's great for camera work because you can't have the fish swimming all over this giant tank and still get a close-up camera shot. We're not just getting bitten and stung by everything. We're trying to get high-speed camera, everything. So literally we get there like, oh no, you're just sticking the palm of your hand down on these spines. I was ready to leave. It was like one of those things that was not discussed ahead of time, like everything else normally is. And finally Adam just told me, it's like, man up. And so we just jammed our palms into those spines. And it was unbelievably bad. Adam almost fainted. He had to get an IV put in.
Really?
Just as a precaution. Yeah. Probably like a vagal response, which is, when people faint, it's just your blood pressure crashes. He was fine a few minutes later, but it was just, I think it was like 100-something degrees out. All of a sudden they're like, oh no, you're jamming your hand on this fish. It was a lot to process and it was extremely painful. The marine stings in general, I noticed Adam and I don't deal with very, very well. It's a type of, or flavor of pain that we don't seem to tough through very well. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of marine stings that we're probably going to do in the future because we can't do stuff that doesn't hurt. We can't do stuff that's going to kill us. Something like a rattlesnake or something, that's mostly a predatory venom.
Right.
Defense is secondary, whereas most, if not all, marine stings are going to be a defensive venom. So they're not designed to kill people or to digest prey. They're designed to cause pain. So there's a lot of potential within the marine animals. And we even did sharks this season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I see this one shark. It's a California. What is this writing so small I can barely read it? California what? Horn shark?
Yeah, California horn shark. We did the California horn shark, and then we did the Port Jackson shark, and those are both bullhead sharks. Okay. It's a family of small sharks. There's like 8 species from the United States and California to I think there's one in Japan, Australia, throughout the Pacific. I think the biggest one is the Port Jackson. Gets about 4 foot long, and pretty much all the species have a spine behind the first and second dorsal fin. And for years, at least since I was a kid, I always heard that the Port Jackson shark was the only confirmed venomous shark. Now there are other sharks since then that they have found some venom in the spines before. But it's for an animal that's in captivity a lot, both the Port Jacksons and the horn shark here in California, there's not a lot of information about them. And Adam grew up hearing the one in California was venomous and not the one that was local to him.
Wow.
So we're like, all right, are they venomous or not? So we compared both. We got stung by juveniles because the adults, the spine will wear off on rocky reefs and things like that. The juveniles have like a 2 to 3 inch spine that is razor sharp.
Wow.
And we both got stuck by both. And it wasn't anything drastic, but we do feel like the California horn shark hurt more than it should have, just based on a spine penetrating the skin.
And so when I wasn't even aware that there were sharks that had that. None of our sharks that I know of have a spine like that.
You have spiny dogfish out there?
If we do, I don't encounter them.
Gotcha.
Most of the sharks we're like lemon sharks, black tips, bulls, hammerheads. You might see a mako, but like real, swimming sharks. But they don't, even the small ones like a dusky or a bonnet shark. They don't have anything like that. They only have one thing that's going to hurt you. It's the mouth.
You've been bitten a few times, right?
Well, no, I haven't. I'm like you, man. I learned how to handle them, and then you learn how to avoid getting bitten. I've almost been bitten a lot of times, and that makes you be even more careful. But some of them you wouldn't want to get bit by. Some of the ones, some of them would just take a little nick out of you. But a 12-foot hammerhead or a bull shark or something, that's like the real deal. They'll take your arm off. So you don't mess around with those. But honestly, in my opinion, the larger the shark is, the more predictable it is and the easier it is to handle it. Where the smaller one, somebody brings it in real fast and it's green and it has tons of energy, and maybe you don't handle little ones that much, and they do weird things and they can put their face on their tail like that, and those are the ones that, in my opinion, those are the ones that are going to bite me. I don't know if they're going to bite everybody, but those are the ones that are the most unpredictable. And you also think, oh, I can get this hook out, and they don't have any weight to them. So you're like, you try to push the hook out on a little shark and it just pushes the shark away. Where if you have a 250-pound shark right there and you take the hook removing tool and you push down, there's something to push against, so the hook actually comes out, right? Like, as opposed to something really small where you need to pick it up with your hands and handle it, and there's just a lot more possibility of getting bit on the little ones, right? So that's, if I get bit, it's probably going to be by a little one. I say that now, and now I'll come back with no arm next time. But
that's interesting. Well, it's the same way with alligators or snakes. You get like a 6-foot alligator, that thing's flexible and flat and fast and big enough to bite you, or like a baby snake did. Despite the misconception that baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous. In one way, a lot of people grab snakes by the tail. And when you do that, if it's a 12-inch snake, that thing's really close to you. Where if it's a 4 or 5 foot snake, you got more room. Yeah. That's another thing we hope to dispel. We obviously can't get bitten by a rattlesnake. But you probably hear that everywhere. Baby snakes are more dangerous. And there's a lot of theories about how that started. But, a baby rattlesnake, they say you can't control its venom or it's more toxic. And I think there was some studies that suggest venom composition does change from a baby snake to an adult, because maybe they're preying on things like lizards when they're younger and move on to mammals when they're older. But there's a lot of other factors, and they can control the amount of venom that they give, just like an adult can. But even if they couldn't, they have such a tiny amount of venom, whereas an adult has so much. It's the difference between like having a little shot of like the strongest like moonshine, a whole giant bottle of normal vodka. The normal vodka, if you drink that whole thing, it's way more dangerous. Even if it's not as strong. So that gets thrown around a lot. I hear it a lot. So we hope to dispel a few things like that. We have a lot of misconceptions ourselves. We started off season 2 with the desert hairy scorpion. I don't know if you're familiar. It's the biggest scorpion in the U.S. or one of the biggest, and it's in the Western United States. It's huge. It looks scary. Ask anybody that's been stung by it. I was stung by one before as well. It's like a bad bee sting. No, it's not that bad. And so Adam and I, we start off season 1 with a desert hairy scorpion. And because we weren't that scared of it, we just let it sting for as long as it wanted. An unnaturally long sting. Yeah. I think it's 5 to 10 seconds each. And it hurt a lot more after doing that. But Adam and I both had some weird symptoms. Like he looked at me, he's like, my jaw is like shattering. He's not saying it on the camera. He's like embarrassed by it. He's like something. I'm like, you're jet lagged. You just got here from Australia, you know? And then I went and got stung by it. And we started having some insanely weird symptoms. So we could feel each individual tooth, like when your foot's asleep. Every tooth you could feel it was asleep. My right arm hurt when I got stung on my left hand.
Wow.
The tops of our heads, the bottoms of our hands and feet were just like pins and needles like you've never had in your life. And that went on for 11 hours. And I had hand cramps in that hand for 16 days straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
So on your scale, would you put that into damage or duration, or what would that be? Those long-term effects like that?
We try to do duration just based on how long it hurt. Now that gets confusing. What if it hurts at like a 9 for 2 hours and then drops down to a 4 for 3 hours? We try to average it out. As far as hand cramping, we put that all under damage. We do our best. It's very difficult to separate some of these things.
Yeah.
But I got instant diarrhea and like was in a porta potty and like it was super embarrassing.
That's from the scorpion.
It had. I mean, it'd be one hell of a coincidence.
Right. Right.
Yeah. An hour after the sting, I'm like, Adam, get in the Jeep. We're going to the porta potty, and so I'm in there and it's splashing back up. So I'm like, scream. I'm like, oh God, it's just coming back up. And I had no idea the whole time Adam's recording through like the top of the porta potty. And I'm over here and like, I'm just saying the most embarrassing things like, oh, the poop's coming back up in my blood, splashing up. And my manhood like shriveled up from, and that happened when I got bitten by a rattlesnake years ago. And so I'm saying all this and then he's recording it all, man. This is day one. This is supposed to be the easy desert hairy scorpion.
That's day one. Is that when you decided you and Adam were going to be buddies?
Yeah, so he lost all trust that day.
That's funny. You get to be pretty good friends on the TV shoots with not only the other host but the friends. I've had a TV show on for now 18 years, and we have 3 other TV shows that we produce, and it's a good time, man. On those, I mean, sometimes it's a good time on the shoots, and then sometimes you've been on them long enough to where everybody just wants to go home. And you've had enough of one another, and you'll see each other in another couple of weeks and it'll be fine. But for now, we've had enough. And I can't imagine when you're getting stung and bitten by all these things. Some of the other things that you've been stung by in the ocean are these different urchins, which people step on, people bump into when they're snorkeling, people do all those kind of things. And this crown of thorn sea star, I didn't know what that was, but the thing looked nasty. What about all of these different things? Are there any similarities to the things in the ocean? Like when we go to different places, like we might, a lot of people go. I've done a couple of trips to Christmas Island. It's out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you might go to Hawaii, or you might come, people are listening all over the world. They might come to the Florida, and there are all these different things as I'm wading these flats for miles and miles on Christmas Island, and I'm looking down and I'm seeing all these different things, and I would just be like, that's super colorful. I'm just going to stay away from that. I don't know what that is, but I'm not going to step on it. I mean, what about these things that sting that you've been encountering thus far? Are there things that are similar, like colorful things, or just any urchin you should just probably avoid it, or what? Like when we're in different places and unfamiliar with the local wildlife, how do you
I mean, you're trying to get stung. We want to keep from getting stung. What would be your advice?
Yeah, the problem is a lot of animals do have what they call aposematic coloration, which just means, look at me, I'm here, and don't mess with me because I'm either venomous or poisonous. Unfortunately, you cannot rely on that rule. Something like a crown of thorns sea star is a huge starfish. It is covered in spines. It looks like something you shouldn't mess with. And it is probably the most venomous starfish. It causes extreme pain. But it looks like you wouldn't want to touch it. There's things, I'm going back off of stuff from 2019 research. It's been a while. I think it's called a flower urchin. And this is an urchin that has no real spines to speak of. It looks gorgeous. It has little structures that look like tiny flowers, and it's all over. It's beautiful. It's something that I would have for sure just picked up. It may be the most dangerous urchin in the world.
Wow.
And those structures actually, I don't want to say bite, but it's almost like it's like hundreds of tiny bites that inject venom into you, and it can potentially even be lethal. And it's something that if anyone's listening, look up flower urchin. I hope I remember it right. It's years old research, but like it blew my mind that something so benign looking is not well known. Same thing with like cone snails. Cone snail is a beautiful common snail that you see around lots of parts of the world, and people grab them, put them in their pockets, and then they can kill people within minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
A snail. How is it doing that? What is it? What's the process or the mechanism? Is it biting you, or is it just the slime on it that is getting into your skin? It's stinging you.
It's stinging. Yeah. There's a lot of different ones. Some of them hunt snails and other stuff, and those aren't that dangerous, but the ones that hunt fish, which you imagine a snail can't chase down a fish. It has to kill it instantly. And it has something called, it has a cocktail, I think they call it like the lightning cabal or something. It has different types of venoms that just shut this fish down immediately with neurotoxins. And it has a proboscis that comes out. So picture something that looks kind of like the siphon on a lot of snails. They'll come out real slow and then just a harpoon-like structure right into the fish. It'll kill a small fish within like a second.
Wow.
And there's species that can kill people within minutes. And they're just beautiful looking cone-shaped snails that are just gorgeous. I've seen them in Hawaii on the beach. I'm sure people pick them up all the time. They just get really lucky.
Wow. That's something to watch out for. I didn't know anything about that. But like, I guess that's the best advice is just stay away from it, right? Like just look at it and don't touch it.
You have to think the rules, don't pick it up. You know, the whole red and yellow kill fellow thing in Florida with the coral snakes. If you have to use those rules, maybe you shouldn't do it because there's always exceptions.
Right.
And you go to the Western US, there's non-venomous snakes that fit that description. You go into, Central America, all of a sudden you're getting coral snakes that may not have any red on it, all kinds of colors. They look completely benign.
Wow. Yeah. I guess you can't rely on that. And then the scorpion fish, that's a very camouflage looking fish. You know, it's trying to hide. And so one of the things I wanted to ask is, you mentioned that it was like really hard to get stung by a lionfish, an adult lionfish, but the small ones were really easy in the situation that you were in, like which could be different than in the wild. It's maybe an aquarium or whatever that's got some corners or whatever, and you could probably pin it there. But on the urchins, you were having to like smash your arm down on these urchins, and on the scorpion fish, you're smashing your hand down. So these things are very dangerous, and I don't want to downplay the danger of them or the sting or bite that you could get. But some of them, were you surprised at how hard it was to get bit or stung by some of these things? Was it harder than you thought in some cases?
Almost across the board. These animals, I can say, well, other than the hippos that were territorial in the river,
they're coming after you.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing else wanted anything to do with us. A lot of animals, by the time we capture them, they're like, okay, biting doesn't work. I'm just going to sit here and just try to be not noticed or try to get away. Every animal has multiple ways of defending itself, and biting is probably pretty dangerous for them, or stinging, because they're maybe using venom. they're also locked in. You know, if you're in a fist fight and you go up and try to bite someone, you're real close to them. You know, a lot of animals prefer to do something that's a little longer distance, like tail whip or something like that.
Growl or do some sort of something that, I mean, like what you're saying is like, for the most part, it's like a last resort, these venoms. But what about like the urchins? Like how hard were you having to push down on those urchins to actually get the stinging part of them? Like is somebody just going to bump up against them and get it? Or do you have to like really hit them pretty hard?
Well, there's a lot of different urchin species out there. And like here in California, we have like these little purple urchins and short, thick spines. Yeah. If you step on one, yeah, that's going all the way in. And they talked to us about stepping on one. We're like, hell no, we're not gonna be able to walk around for the next episode anyway. Right. So it's going to take us out of commission. But it did. Then there's other ones like the diadema urchins that have extremely long spines. And those can go in. I'm sure if you're just snorkeling and bump into one, they'll go straight in with no problem at all. But I don't know how deep because they're so thin that they'll break. For this one, we had to push really hard. It had thicker, longer spines that were non-venomous. And then these really fine, short spines along the body that contain the venom. And this was a fire urchin. And it's one of the most venomous urchins that we could get a hold of. Probably one of the most venomous in the world. And so we had to push through all of these, big spines breaking off in our skin, and it's just stupid. And then we had to keep going until we hit these little spines and had those penetrate the skin. That was just like a willpower kind of thing. It was tough to do. It would have been easier in my early 20s when I was dumb. You know what I mean? Not like, why am I doing this?
Now you have some wisdom. But I guess the question that most people would ask is, why are you doing it? I mean, why are you doing it? That's what everybody's going to be like. As soon as I showed any of my friends, I'm like, look, this guy's going to be on the podcast. They were like, why? That's their first question. Why? That's
an easy one. Besides the fact that Adam and I both had a morbid curiosity growing up. I worked in reptile stores. I'm like, oh, this Thursday I'll let this baby Nile monitor bite me. No, tomorrow I'll compare it to the baby Savannah monitor. So there was a little of that growing up, and Adam was the same way. But because of that, we had some really drastic differences between one species and another that are closely related, or from one bite to another that from the same species. So it made us really curious, and it became a passion project for us. I told you about the people writing us saying, now I want to be a biologist, et cetera. That stuff, that's what's kept us going, because that morbid curiosity is going on. You know what I mean? But there are a few animals, like we did an electric eel this season. We wanted to feel that since we were kids. Oh, what does that feel like? We want to try the murder hornet in the future. We do have a lot of fun with these things.
It looks like the electric eel was about midway on the scale.
We almost didn't put it on the pain index.
Huh.
And the reason was because it was pain, but it happened so fast.
Kind of like an electric shock.
Exactly.
Because that's not, I wouldn't say that like I'm a poor electrician, so this has happened a couple of times, but I wouldn't say that that's pain. It scares the hell out of you. And it's a weird feeling. It's something that you haven't really experienced that much before. You immediately know you don't want any more of it.
Yep.
But I don't know how I'd call it pain. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, you know what I mean. You're coming up with the scale of pain.
It's the same thing. I was like, I don't know if we're going to call this pain.
Yeah.
And in the end, we're like, well, it was a sensation that forced our hand out of that water in the tank so fast.
You don't want any more.
Yeah. I was like, I guess that is pain. It was tough. It was a tough decision to put that one on.
Huh. So did it
strapped into the tank? It would have been pain.
Yeah. Well, if you couldn't get out, I guess if you were in the water, and you couldn't get out, maybe it would last a little longer, but I don't know. Do any of these venomous things that you've been stung or bit by, you mentioned that you had some lingering effects. Did anything give you like a psychedelic effect? Did you have any hallucinations or any kind of weirdness? I mean, like people lick toads and they do all kinds of things with venom, which is for a psychedelic response. I just wondered if you had any. I mean, there's a lot of animals on here that you. messed
Well, I
with.
think if you lick the toad, I just found this out recently. If you lick the toad, you're probably just going to get sick.
Oh.
I think they smoke it. Yeah, I
This
always
is
heard
not
one.
much fun.
Yeah. I will admit there's things like the tarantula hawk, which is really painful. I think we rated like an 8 or a 9, but it lasts seconds. It hurts, and then your body, I guess, just breaks down that venom immediately. But it hurts so bad for such a short amount of time. You have the most pleasant, like, endorphin rush you've ever had for like 5 minutes. Like, you feel good
After it stops, after the pain stops, or during the pain? Wow.
Not during the pain. Like, I tend to jump out of my seat with these tarantula hawks and some other ones. But by the time your feet hit the ground, it's already starting to fade away. And but it happens so fast. Your body, it hurts so bad that your body is just giving a huge dump of adrenaline and I guess dopamine and things like that. So because it thinks it just, you just lost a finger or an arm or something. And then it goes away so fast, you're left with that really pleasant feeling. I hope no one here is about to turn to a junkie, a lost junkie.
Well, they're already out there. The bee junkies and the other people that like to get stung. I don't know if you're going to contribute to that. But
there were definitely it was a very tough season on us, both like physically and mentally. We were going from one sting to the next. We did Arizona bark scorpion, which has actually killed people. Probably not deadly to a human, to an adult human, but still very dangerous. We really pushed the envelope this season because we stayed in one location. We had Dr. Ben, who was our medic, in basically like an old shack, but all his medical equipment was there. We had protocols to get to the hospital. We were really able to do more dangerous things like the Arizona bark scorpion, the electric eel, which is denied in the Amazon. We wanted to do one in the Amazon. They're like, well, you're in the middle of the jungle. You can't do that.
Right. So you have to bring the electric eel somewhere else and do it where you have medical treatment. And is that the way that's a different format for the show this year?
Yeah. Season 2 is all in the same location.
Okay.
And that allows us to do more dangerous animals and allows us to shop around more. We don't have to go there to get it. Like, I surprised Adam with an OBT tarantula, which is one of the most painful tarantula bites in the world. And so and he's pissed about this, right? And before, because he doesn't like tarantulas, and before the bite, we have a Zoom call with someone who had been bitten by one before, and he had cramps, he said, for many, many months after his OBT tarantula bite, for months.
Oh,
and
man.
So we were like going into every bite and sting thing. We're going to get the worst case scenario. It was a trippy season. It was really crazy.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right. I know you've got a tight timeline here. I want to respect that, but I have a few questions I want to ask you, just kind of rapid fire at the end. All right. So what do you think was the smallest thing that packed the biggest punch from season 1 and 2 combined?
The road beetle, for sure. This thing was the size of a small ant. You remember that one?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it has basically bug blood that gets on your skin and keeps your cells from replicating, and your skin just falls off about a week later.
And so where does that thing live?
All over the world, there's different species. Some are dangerous in Africa. This was in Bali. People sleep with the light on. They come in. They are incredibly tiny. You smash it, you flick it off of you, it can spray the bug blood on you. It's called hemolymph. Or if you smash it, it gets on you and you don't see it, so you don't know. So then you're rubbing it on other parts of your body. Oh, and no. People get in their eyes and things like that.
The worst poison ivy, bug poison ivy. Yeah. That sounds terrible. I think I would sleep in a bug net. I'm sure that people do. How do they avoid that? So
I guess screens on the windows and certain things like that. That's the only thing I could get out of it. Well, we have some screens on the windows or turn off the lights at a certain time.
So it's common for somebody for people in those areas where those beetles are to get hit with them.
Yeah, it's
real common. All right. So what bite or sting would you not volunteer for again?
Well, we did a 16-foot reticulated python. We almost didn't do a python because it doesn't really need to be explained that you don't want to get bitten by a large snake. But we figured we do that, and then we can show some of the cooler animals because it brings people in. These type of things bring people in. But the python got a lucky hit on my ulnar nerve, which is the nerve that is what we call the funny bone. So if you ever, it felt exactly like I just hit my funny bone for months.
Oh,
I had surgery, physical therapy, considered 18% disabled. That was unfortunate. But it didn't hold us back from season 2. We're doing a dangerous job, you know.
You still have any lingering effects from that?
Absolutely. Wow. But, you know, I just within the last month, you know, it's been like 3 years. I've got back into Krav Maga, doing some more martial arts training, stuff I used to do. It took a long time to be able to do that without severe pain. And it still hurts, but I'm back. I'm really excited. My hands getting stronger, more coordinated. I mean, you get bit by a 16-foot snake, you can't really complain about it.
That looked really serious because it did. You chose for it to bite you on the elbow, and it kind of went under a little bit. But man, I just look at my arm, and there are so many veins and stuff right there. Why would you choose that? I mean, I guess that's as good as any place, right? But
yeah, I had more muscle back then. I just figured like when you pull the elbow over, it kind of puffs out that muscle. Yeah. I wasn't aware of the ulnar nerve. No one told us about that. But yeah, it a bit further back than we thought. So there's just no good way to do it. We didn't want to just hold the head and then put it where we want. We wanted the snake to do it real strong.
And that 16 feet long, huh?
Yeah, 16 foot. And we believe it was a male. We asked the guys to take us out a couple nights to find, you know, several. So we had options, and they took us to a spot in this riverbed, and we found like a 7 or 8 foot one. And then we found a 16-footer.
Wow.
And the best we could tell, it was a male, and the males have serrated teeth, and that's not what we wanted. Much more dangerous, but we're there. We don't have much more time. It's the snake we got. We took the risk, and you know,
man,
there's a consequence.
I've had this guy on the podcast a couple times, Python Cowboy. He's down in the Everglades, and Mike Kimmel. He caught the record in the Everglades, and that thing bit him bad on the arm, just like you. I mean, he was bleeding bad. So it didn't surprise me when I saw your arm get. You know, you were bleeding like seriously.
Yeah, I remember that when Python Cowboy got bit, and those got him, and you know, like Snakeaholic. I know you had both.
I've had both of them. Yeah, those guys are. They're both, man. They are. Those guys are legit, and just in doing what they do, they get bit by a lot of things. You guys would get along great.
they both invited me out to go python catch with them. I think I'm going to take it up on it because, you know, some of the animals I'm a little scared of, you know, the centipedes and things like that. I've definitely lost a lot of fear. But the snake I wasn't scared of at all. I love snakes. That's kind of like my main jam.
Yeah.
But I haven't handled a large python since the bite, and I'm afraid now what if that turns into some type of phobia.
Right.
So I think I should go out there with them, get back in the saddle, sort of.
You should go. And then there's all kinds of things you can get stung by in Florida Keys. And we got scorpions down there. You're going to love it. It's going to be the best vacation you've ever had. You're going to get stung every day.
I would love to. Hopefully
I'll let you get bit by a shark. We can have you bit by a barracuda if you want. There's lots of things.
I was going to ask you, what did you think about that show, River Monsters? Because that was a big inspiration to me for doing Kings of Pain.
River Monsters was a well put together show. You know, it's different than what we do, but I like the science, and I like going out and what he did really that was cool that no one had really done before was to show freshwater in a way that it had never been shown before. People have seen big sharks and they've seen lots of crazy things in the ocean, but what they did there, they went around, and there are crazy things that live in rivers, and he went and found them, and it was a really well put together show. Thought it was great. I'd like to get him on the podcast one day. I don't have any connection to him, but
it was one of his podcast talks before Kings of Pain, because I was hesitant. Like, I've always wanted to do a bite show, but as I got older, I was like, well, is this going to scare people away from animals in a bad way? I was like, you know, I love River Monsters, but if you just listen to the audio, it's like, and now I'm going to the river. Lightning could strike me. I might fall in and drown. It's like so silly and dramatic. But he's like, but I'm not going to apologize for that, because we hook people in, and then we like secretly give them, you know, good science. And I was like, that's right. I was like, so many people told me that they were in the freshwater fish conservation now because of River Monsters.
Yeah.
And so they had a huge impact on me and Adam as well, as to how Kings of Pain could do something good. Because I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, what do you want to make them look bad? and we don't. So I always like to talk about that part and how it's actually had a lot of good, because that was a huge relief to Adam.
Yeah. And then, you look back at somebody like Steve Irwin, who got bit by all kinds of things and, missed getting bit by lots of things. But that show was very science-based. He really knew his stuff. He had incredible delivery in the heat of the moment. He's like, look at this thing. It wants to bite me. And if it does, I'm going to die. Like, and he's holding it right there and it's about to bite him. And he just did such an incredible job for the camera and played to the camera and just drew everyone in. He was really incredible, in my opinion. One of the all-time best. I don't know if anybody's ever going to be able to have that kind of delivery, because it was so unique. And he was just from Australia, and he just had the accent, and he had the knowledge, and he was physical, and he could do it all. And he was just like a dream come true for a network show like that. It was just fantastic. And he wasn't afraid of anything. He would just go after whatever. Like, it was just awesome. So, I mean, I see that your show's in the same vein. Really, it's really good. I mean, you guys are doing a really good job. Was this your idea, or was it Adam's idea, or did somebody come to you and propose that maybe you should be the talent, or was there how did it happen?
It's pretty funny. Adam and I had very different journeys. I got my first animal wrangling gig in 2008. And I was getting bitten by non-venomous snakes for a high-speed camera. and I was like, well, someone should make a show and rate how bad some of these animals hurt. And my buddy's like, interesting, you should say that. Stay tuned. I'm like, all right. The next year, we shot a pilot for a major network. We had spinning cobras. 2 guys went to the hospital. They wanted to compare it to things at home. So they put Tabasco sauce in my eye and burned off the outer layer of my cornea. And I had to go to the eye doctor and so that did not get picked up. Oh. Like, you guys went pretty hard. And so this show idea has been floating around for a while, and I never thought anybody would actually pick it up. I got lucky, had a couple of appearances about Schmidt's Pain Index, like on Ripley's Believe It or Not. Oh. And so I've always been into it. Adam always wanted to host a wildlife TV show. He traveled to Southeast Asia and was filming like tapirs and all these cool animals. He went to India to film the lions that are not tigers, but lions that are in India. He did a lot of really cool things. And then I was talking to History about just a different show I wanted to do. And they were like, well, how do you feel about getting bitten and stung? Completely not knowing that I would been interested in this stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And so they had me come out to like this ranch to meet some other guys who might be interested. And they flew Adam out just saying, hey, would you want to do a wildlife TV show? And he was like, yeah. And they flew him out last minute. And he's in the car ride to set, and they're like, you ready for this? And he's like, yeah, what's the show about? I'm like, oh, well, you get bitten and stung by animals and rate the pain and make a new pain index. And he was like, what? But we met up with different guys that are like have biologist backgrounds and things like that. And Adam and I just clicked really well.
Nice.
And it worked out. And our first week of shooting, we caught a huge anaconda, and Adam grabbed the head and picked it up for the camera. And after the scene, he was like, man, I bet it looked pretty cool there. So next big snake we see, we'll make sure that you jump on and get your camera time too. I was like, all right, this is not your normal, like, egotistical, like guy. He's sharing the fame and all that. And I was like, man, you're a really good dude. And we've basically been best friends ever since.
Nice. Well, yeah. Adam was supposed to be on this podcast with us, but apparently he's sick, and he must be incredibly sick, because I can't imagine it could be worse than getting bitten by a reticulated python and then keeping on going. But let's hope he's feeling better.
Well, you know how us guys are. We get the man flu. We're down.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've had it myself. It's going around. All right. So what do you tell yourself? What do you do with your mindset before you're getting ready to get stung by something that you've never? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen, and you're like in Bali, and no matter what, it's going to be a long plane ride home. I'd personally be worried about infection. You're getting bit by these things. Like, okay, it might hurt a while today, but in 2 weeks, is this thing going to be just infected? I don't know. Right. That's what I would think. But how do you get prepared for one of these bites or stings?
Mentally, all the prep work we do actually makes it harder, because we are coming up with animals we want to do. Then we're looking at all the case studies of like if someone gets bitten by something and it wasn't that bad, that doesn't make it into the literature. It's always that 1% of like, oh, this guy's left testicle fell off, you know? So we do, sometimes weeks of that. And then, that has to go to, to the doctor, has to go to production, has to go to insurance, has to go to History Channel. Like everyone has to. So there's usually a long process of just everyone going back and forth about the worst case, scenario. We just had, we call it the scorpion squirts from season 1. I got the diarrhea. So we're like going through all this stuff. And so your brain is just so attuned. We're jumpy, and especially in season 2, we are super jumpy. But yeah, that was one of the benefits of season 2 being in one spot. Like we know we're near very good medical care. Season 1, I had a huge hematoma after the python bite, and the doctor's trying to squeeze it out. We get a police escort to the hospital in Bali, and bless their heart, but like they had no idea what to do. They were trying to give me antivenom for a python, which is non-venomous. And the doctor's like, no, it's non-venomous. Don't give them antivenom. All I want to do is maybe cut them open a little bit in your hospital. It's a big ask to do this.
Right.
The hospital. And just release this hematoma because it may be causing pressure on the ulnar nerve. We didn't know the ulnar nerve had been punctured. We thought maybe it's just a hematoma at this point. And they're like, well, you can't cut them open because that's dangerous because of the venom. He's like, well, once again, there's no venom. And this went on for about an hour. And it ended up being like, we went to a hotel room. He gave me some pills and a shot of tequila and stuck a giant needle on my arm and did the best to do it. So there was things like that. We had a guy in the Amazon who had like an allergic reaction to an animal. And then we almost lost him on the boat ride in the Amazon on the way back home.
Wow.
So these things are really, really real. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in our mind the whole time.
All right. Final question. How do you keep from cussing like a sailor? Because you're much better at it than Adam. There's a lot of beeps and bleeps and stuff there, but you managed to do it. I would not be able to manage to do that. When I get hurt, it's coming out. It's coming out every time.
Well, season 2, I didn't quite do as well. The whole time I try to picture my mom's going to watch this. I'm trying not to cuss too much, but there was so much more pain this season. I didn't do so great. Oh man. I would love to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because when I heard you were either talking to Snakeaholic or Python Cowboy, and you said you would much rather get bitten by a shark than any snake or reptile.
Yeah.
Out of everything out there, other than like the obvious, like a shark that could take your arm off, is there any animal? What's the least favorite thing that you would want to get bitten by?
Snakes. I don't really like snakes that much. Especially the way that, like the one that you did, they shot it with a red camera and the thing bit you, and then it's like writhing on your arm like that. Just, and the lizard too. I wouldn't want to get bit by a lizard either. But I don't know, reptiles. I'm not just really terribly afraid of them, but I also don't handle them. I don't want to handle them. If I see one, I'm just going to go, wow, there's a snake over there. I'm going this way. And I've never had a draw to wanting to handle them. I have friends that want to handle them, that they just want, they see one, they want to pick it up. I've never wanted to. And I just can't imagine one just hanging on my arm, just writhing, trying to stick its fangs in there even further. Like that would not be good. I'm not afraid of getting bit by fish. That doesn't really happen that much. Of course, there are some fish that you definitely do not want to get bit by. That would be like in my opinion, a kingfish or a barracuda. And that's, I believe that's only going to happen when you're handling them or they're in the boat, like flopping around and they don't even really bite you. Their mouth is open. It's going back and forth like this, and your foot happens to be there, and it's going to slice you wide open, man. Those teeth are so sharp. The kingfish is probably the most difficult or dangerous fish to handle, in my opinion. They don't have teeth like sharks, like they have these little, it's like a little saw. And they're so sharp on the points, and they're sharp on both sides. And there's just a mouth full of them. There's hundreds of them in there, and they're very short. Like the barracuda, he does this thing with his mouth, right? The
the mackerel just has his mouth open all the time and just comes in and shakes his head. And I don't know, like a small mackerel is one that can really get you. And I don't know. I don't want to get hit by one of those.
Yeah.
They more, I think they more like hit you. And you'll see, like, you know, over time, there's been like a barracuda attacks fishermen in the Florida Keys, and the thing goes leaping out of the water, and it happens to land in somebody's boat. Well, he wasn't trying to attack that person. It was attacking a mullet way out there. It had no idea the boat was here, and it comes down with his mouth open and opens some guy's arm up with 25 stitches, you know, and just because that's how sharp those teeth are. And, you know, it weighs 18 pounds and it's coming down with a good amount of force, and it'd just be like somebody jumping at you with some knives, you know, and it would open you right up. But I don't think that they would attack you. Now, the one fish that does attack and did attack us is a swordfish. And I'm not swimming with those anymore. I wasn't the diver, but we had a diver in the water, and the swordfish, the diver knows exactly what he was doing, and he was not in a good position. Typically, he would only be on the outside of the fish so that the angler has the line coming back to the boat. The diver would be on the outside so that if the fish did turn that way, at least the line is pulling it away from him. The diver ended up between the boat and the fish, between the fish and the angler. So if the fish turns towards the boat, there's no pressure on it whatsoever, and it can just go. And I've got this video where it's the diver's video, and he's got a scooter, it's got, you know, it's like one of these Yamaha scooters that has the hard plastic coating. We got GoPros all over it. And so it is a kind of defensive shield as well. But man, this swordfish is going like across like this, and you see his eye just go click. Like, okay, you're the problem. And then it turns and just as fast as it can do his tail, goes straight at our diver. And luckily it hit the bill, hit the scooter, went into the scooter and broke the bill off, which is really hard to do. Wow. And we've got pictures of the scooter with the bill in it and everything. But I mean, that would have easily gone through any bone in the human body. And those swordfish, they are, I don't know about a marlin. Sailfish don't really do it. To my experience, I've swam with plenty of those when we've hooked those, and they don't intentionally come after you. That swordfish, that was an attack. I mean, there was no question about it. I'll show you the video. You're like, whoa. So if they try to talk you into swimming with a swordfish, it's not a good idea. I would say a marlin probably wouldn't be a good idea either. Sailfish, probably okay, but you know, they got that big bill. Those swordfish, like when we were fishing in Louisiana, you fish with these big weights. They're like a 12 or 20 pound lead weight, and you'll think you're getting bites, and you don't get one. So you bring it up, and that weight is just beat to hell with the bill, and big marks all over that weight. And so they do that. I mean, they are attacking things with that bill all the time. And so to think that they're not going to come after you, they will. But that's a scary fish. That really is. That's a scary fish. It does things that other fish don't do. Like it can come from 2,000 feet straight to the surface and go straight back down. It just doesn't have the same. It's just a different fish. It's like almost a different. It's like an alien almost. It just is. It's just a tough fish that is just, you know, it's a tough fish. But I'm not going to have any divers swim with those anymore. They're scary. Yeah.
That sucks. They're beautiful animals.
Oh, they are beautiful, and they're and what makes them even more beautiful is just the things that they can do. They can hunt in almost entire complete darkness. They're in water that is so cold, you know, down in 2,000 feet of water. That water's cold, man. And then they can come straight up to the surface, and they can jump, and they can bask on the surface, and then they can just dive straight down, and they don't blow up like a grouper or something. When you bring up a mutton snapper or a grouper or something from even 400 or 500 feet or 400 feet of water, they like blow up. So the swordfish doesn't do that. And they got this crazy eye. I don't know. They're really.
Don't they have like some warm-blooded muscle or something around their eye?
Yeah, they do something like that to where they can have the blood in their head, and they can still think and everything. So they're down there hunting in places where no other fish can really, or no other game fish anyway can hunt. And so they're down there just eating squid and doing their thing. But they could eat anywhere in the water column. They're an incredible fish. I would love to know more about the swordfish, but I tell you what, I know enough not to swim with one. That's not a good idea. And our diver was not the only one to get attacked by one either. There have been other film crews that have had them attack the cameras or the divers. And it's serious. I mean, they could really get you. That could kill you
easily.
Yeah. Really easy.
Goodness.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to watch your show, man. When's the next season coming out? When's season 2 come out?
Thursday, the 26th of May at 10:30 Eastern Central. And I know you said you like the show Alone. Yeah. Season 9 of Alone comes out the same day, right before our show. So you can binge watch both if you want to. I will. I became a big Alone fan when we had Jordan Jonas. He won season 6, and I had him on the podcast. Really interesting guy. Killed a moose on that show. And then I started watching it. Like I watched that whole season preparing for that podcast. And then I watched the next season, and there was another dude named Rowland that I've always wanted to have on the podcast. And that dude built this incredible stone house. He called it the Stone House. And that guy he was the real deal, man. He was like an outfitter from Alaska. They get real survivalists on that show. That show is legit. I mean, they stay out there for a long time, and I don't know. It's not Survivor. It's Alone. I mean, it's a different deal. Totally. I mean, I love Survivor too. But it is just a different
thing.
Yeah, a lot of those shows, if it's 3 weeks, that's very difficult. Yeah. But I'm sure you could maybe live 3 weeks even without food. So
yeah, I mean, they just keep upping the ante on that Alone show. Like first it was like Last Man Standing, and Jordan, he won, and he was doing fine. It was like 60 days or whatever. He was fine. He told me he had so much food that when they came to pick him up, he fed the crew lunch.
Shut up.
Yeah. He had caught all these fish. He's like, well, it's a long way back. I mean, even in an airplane, we want to just eat something here. And so he just ate all their food. And then the next one, they were like, okay, well, it's going to be 100 days. See who makes it to 100 days. And like you weren't, if you just tapped out when he did it at 60 days or whatever, that wasn't going to be enough. So they keep upping the ante. Like, I don't know, man, but they're legit. There's some real survivalists among us. And then they do. I mean, they're legit, like really, really legit. And a lot of the women on that show were seriously legit. I mean, it's incredible to watch them. I mean, they got skills, and they obviously didn't just practice this stuff. They live it day to day, and it's cool. It's a cool show.
Years and years and years, I'm sure.
Yeah, lifetimes. Yeah, lifetimes. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And we'll watch for this coming up Thursday, the 26th. That's like we're recording this almost then. So I'll try to get this out as soon as possible. And what about yourself? Is there any way that people can follow you on social media? Can they go to a website? Can they support you in any way?
Yeah. Adam and I both basically do Instagram. Adam is Adam_Thorn, and I am Caveman Rob.
Caveman Rob. Why do they call you Caveman?
Something about my mental capacity.
Has that been following you your whole life, or what? Is that a new thing?
Yeah. People just started calling me that because I used to do a lot of hand fishing and catching fish by hand. Yeah. I hear. You probably like that. Actually.
What kind of hand fishing are you doing? Like Cuban yo-yo?
So mostly saltwater, so I love the ocean. I'm very into it, but I'm cursed. I get seasick. I get car sick. So I get seasick. Terrible free diver. Not a great swimmer, but so the only reason I love ocean animals. And I've never been into fishing. My dad took me fishing a lot, and I would spend the whole time looking for snakes or crawfish because I like more the active hunting. You know? But one day I was out here, I moved to California from Oklahoma, and there's a 4-foot shovel-nose ray going by me. And I was like, man, I'd just love to get a hold of it. So I was in the surf, and I just jumped for it. And I come up with this 4-foot shovel-nose ray. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my buddy's way down the beach. I'm like screaming at him to come look at this thing. And that started a whole thing. we'll go out into the surf, sometimes day, sometimes night, catch nose rays, which get 4 foot, maybe 40 pounds. Those are very difficult. I think I have the best vision of any fish. At least that's what I read. So you have to like get them swimming in the perfect conditions and like clear water so you can see it, but the cloudy part of the water has to be over its head. Like I'm talking like really difficult. We get thornback rays which come in and bury themselves. They don't have a barb, but they're covered in 3 rows of spines. So first we were grabbing them by the tail and just shredded our hands. And then we figured out, you grab them by the pectoral fins. They're a disc, but you grab them on the sides. And that was better, but sometimes they whip their tail and get you with a few of those spines. And then we just started grabbing them by the snout, and they have ampulated Lorenzini, just like a shark. And they do that kind of tonic immobility that I'm sure you've done plenty of times. And they just kind of sit there and you look at them and let them go. Done several species of rays. Sometimes I do with gloves. I've been stung by like 3 different types of rays.
With the barb? Like it goes in you?
Yeah. I don't catch stingrays. I caught bat rays, which is a type of eagle ray, and I and some round rays before. I stopped doing that because I got tagged a couple of times. I'd use like hex armor gloves on those and then try to grab, but they still got me a couple of times. So I stopped doing that. But then my brother in Oklahoma, he's like big in the fishing on the Arkansas River. And he's like, called me one day. He's like, I know it's Friday morning, but they've released the dam schedule way upstream for the weekend amount of water they're putting out. And there's this little spillway way downstream. And he's like, by Saturday morning, that water is going to be so low. We'll have hundreds of paddlefish trapped in the river. And so I caught like a flight straight there. And then we got there shallow water and we're just jumping on paddlefish. First we'd grab them by the tail and they would just kick your ass and they'd slap you with their tail. But eventually we grabbed them by the bill. You know, these are huge fish. They get, I don't know, 4 to 6 foot long. Yeah. I think the record is like 100 something pounds. We're catching 20 to 60 pounders, like decent fish. And they got basically a handle with that bill and we were catching them. And, oh man, there's been stuff like that. So I've been trying to branch. I used to catch sharks by hand, baby ones, but I kind of leave them alone now because I know sharks are having a hard time. But
in some places, come to Florida. There's as many as you want.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot, but there could be possibly a global decrease in the number of sharks, but overall, but then you could still have certain areas where the population is absolutely exploding. And in Florida, the population is absolutely exploding. The Bahamas, Florida, it's unbelievable. It's really a problem. Actually, they're on every fish you catch. It's really, really, I've never seen so many sharks. Nobody has. It's crazy because a lot of the longline boats have not, they don't fish for them anymore. And so they don't have any predation. I don't know if that's what's going on or whatever. There are a ton. You can feel very comfortable about messing with sharks in Florida because there are so many. There are so many awesome right now. Well, that's cool, man. Isn't it funny how every fish has a certain way that you can handle it safely? Like every single one. Like, and all you got to do is get around these things, and then you just go to a slightly different area, and there'll be a fish that looks just like another one, and you grab it by the tail, and you're like, yeah, God, that thing's got spines on its tail. It looks just like this other one, but it's not. Like, I went to Australia and fished for all these fish, and they have so many fish that look almost exactly like our fish, but there's little differences. So you got to be careful how you're handling them. There was only one fish that was exactly the same, and it was the cobia. It was exactly the same as our cobia, but they would have all these different ones. Anyway, we could probably talk about that all day, but I'd love to have you back on the show, man. We'll get Adam on the show next time. Let's let season 2 get out there and let everybody see it. And I'd love to have you guys back. Will you come back?
I wish Adam was here with us, man.
I do too, man.
Hard guy to talk to.
I do too. Well, we'll do it again. I appreciate it, Rob. That was great. And everybody go follow these guys on Instagram or watch the show. It's a very entertaining show. I think you guys will like it as much as I did. All right, that's it for today. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. Thank you, Rob.
All right, thanks, Tom.
Okay.